The town that I just came from is so much smaller. Would you mind helping me find it?
Well, I mean, are you sure you want to hang out with me?
Why wouldn't I?
I mean, I'm not the most popular girl in school. I wouldn't want to ruin your reputation or anything.
Are you just gonna let that plebe cut in line?
Hey, who do you think you are? You know, ordering a drink before me doesn't make you look less trashy than you do right now. Come on.
Best burn ever. So cool.
Wow, you two are really alike.
I'm not like her.
She's not.
I'm serious. Well, until you let this whole popularity thing get to you. I mean, we can go back to the way things used to be.
Hey, ladies. Do you guys need a lift?
No, actually, we're waiting to hear from Jillian.
Oh, well, honestly, I was thinking that we would hang out, all three of us. It's not like Jillian runs her life or anything, right? Come on, you'll love it.
Okay.
Episode 2 of Popular deepens the series' exploration of identity, power, and longing by tracing how Sabina's tentative flirtation with popularity hardens into performance, strategy, and emotional distancing. Beginning with the striking image of Jillian, Sabina, and Aria entering the coffee shop in synchronized confidence, their posture and demeanor communicating a shared language of status that Sabina has clearly learned to speak, even as the episode subtly questions what has been lost in the translation. This opening moment establishes that belonging, when built on hierarchy, demands constant maintenance, and Sabina's presence among the clique is immediately revealed as conditional, monitored, and unstable. Aidra's position behind the counter quietly reinforces these dynamics, as she occupies a liminal role that mirrors her emotional position within the group, both included and subordinate. Visible yet constrained, a reminder that even within popularity, there are layers of power and vulnerability. Jillian's reaction to Sabina's growing confidence is not simple jealousy, but an instinctive assertion of control, demonstrating how dominance in female social structures often manifests through subtle humiliation rather than overt aggression. And the way Jillian cuts Sabina down reveals an unspoken rule that confidence must be sanctioned from above to remain acceptable. Sabina's embarrassment is deeply internalized, and the episode resists portraying it as righteous anger, instead presenting it as a corrosive mixture of shame and determination that many queer women recognize as the emotional residue of trying to belong in spaces that demand self-erasure. When Sabina later walks home alone, the physical solitude mirrors her emotional isolation, and Avi's appearance behind her functions as a return of conscience, memory, and unspoken connection, the past catching up to the present before it can fully calcify into something unrecognizable. Avi's decision to jog forward, to close the distance, is itself an act of courage, underscoring her continued willingness to reach for Sabina, despite repeated signals that such reaching may not be welcomed. Sabina's immediate defensiveness reveals how shame often seeks an outlet, and her declaration of a plan to teach Jillian a lesson reads less as empowerment than as displacement, redirecting hurt into strategy because vulnerability feels too dangerous. Avi's plea for restraint is not framed as moral superiority but as concern rooted in experience, and when she reveals her past romantic relationship with Jillian, the narrative complicates any simplistic villain narrative, illustrating how queer women's histories often intersect in small communities, layering desire, betrayal, mentorship, and regret in ways that defy easy categorization. Avi's confession reframes Jillian not just as an antagonist but as a former source of intimacy, complicating Avi's pain and lending gravity to her warning, as she understands firsthand the emotional cost of entanglement with someone who equates control with care. Avi's lament that Sabina has changed is delivered without accusation, emphasizing grief rather than judgment, and her admission that she misses Sabina and their shared time exposes the emotional stakes beneath the social maneuvering, highlighting how queer longing often expresses itself through nostalgia and loss rather than overt desire in cultures that discourage explicit articulation. Sabina's near response, the moment when she appears poised to acknowledge this truth before retreating, becomes one of the episode's most significant silences, illustrating how self-recognition is often aborted mid-breath when it threatens hard-won protection. and her abrupt departure leaves Avi holding the emotional weight alone, a familiar burden for those who choose honesty in environments that reward detachment. As days pass, Sabina's plan unfolds not through spectacle but through quiet manipulation, her conversations with Aidra and Aria framed as reasonable, even empowering, as she emphasizes autonomy and age as justification, language that resonates with feminist ideals, while masking a more complicated ethical terrain. This rhetorical strategy reflects how power can be exercised through the vocabulary of liberation, and the episode invites viewers to consider how often women are encouraged to frame relational harm as self-assertion in order to make it palatable. Sabina's success in drawing Aria and Aidra away from Jillian demonstrates her growing fluency in social navigation, but it also reveals the hollowness of popularity when it is built on resentment rather than connection, as the trio's enjoyment feels provisional, dependent on shared opposition rather than mutual understanding. The narrative carefully avoids celebrating Sabina's triumph, instead maintaining an undercurrent of unease that underscores how revenge, even when justified by hurt, rarely restores what was lost. Sabina's use of the group's simmering resentment to foster intimacy is portrayed not as predatory but as misguided, a search for validation through closeness that remains emotionally unanchored, and the episode's restraint in depicting this closeness emphasizes its emotional consequences rather than its surface form. Sabina's orchestration of Jillian's discovery reveals a desire not only to punish but to be seen, to force recognition through spectacle because quieter forms of acknowledgement have failed, and this impulse speaks to a broader cultural pattern in which marginalized desires are often rendered legible only through disruption. The anticipated backfire of Sabina's scheme is less about external fallout than about internal reckoning, as the episode suggests that the true cost of her actions will be measured in further distance from her own emotional truth. Throughout episode 2, the series interrogates how queer women learn to negotiate power in environments that offer visibility at the price of authenticity. And Sabina's arc illustrates how easily survival strategies can calcify into patterns of harm when pain goes unexamined. Jillian's role as both former lover and current antagonist embodies the complexity of queer mentorship and rivalry, showing how guidance can slide into control when power remains unchallenged, and how younger women may mistake domination for care when they lack alternative models. Aria and Aidra's willingness to follow Sabina reflects the hunger for belonging that transcends individual loyalty, reminding viewers that popularity is often less about admiration than about relief from isolation. Avi's steady moral presence, marked by restraint and emotional clarity, stands in contrast to the other's volatility, but the narrative resists idealizing her suffering, instead highlighting the quiet toll of being emotionally available in a world that does not reward such availability. The episode's focus on manipulation, choice, and consequence resonates beyond queer specificity, speaking to women broadly who recognize the pressure to perform confidence, suppress hurt, and manage social dynamics at the expense of inner coherence. By foregrounding emotional negotiation rather than physical spectacle, Popular challenges cultural tendencies to sensationalize women's relationships while ignoring their psychological depth, insisting that lesbian stories deserve the same seriousness afforded to other narratives of growth and conflict. The series' attention to how women justify, translate, or downplay their feelings in order to remain acceptable underscores the pervasive demand for legibility that shapes female relationships, particularly in adolescence, when social survival feels inseparable from self-worth. Episode 2 ultimately frames Sabina's journey not as a fall from innocence, but as a confrontation with the limits of performative empowerment, suggesting that true confidence cannot be borrowed from status, but must be cultivated through alignment with one's values and connections. The discomfort society holds toward women loving women, whether through friendship, mentorship, or romance, is reflected in the episode's tension between private feeling and public display, and the narrative's refusal to resolve this tension neatly honors the reality that visibility is an ongoing process rather than a destination. By presenting lesbian relationships as ethically complex and emotionally significant rather than transgressive or titillating, Popular contributes to a growing body of work that reclaims women-centered stories as sites of meaning, resilience, and truth. Episode 2 leaves viewers with an unsettling but necessary question about the cost of being seen on terms not of one's own making, inviting reflection on how often women, queer and otherwise, are taught to equate recognition with worth, and how reclaiming intimacy as a space of care rather than conquest may be the most radical act of all in a culture still learning how to acknowledge women's love for women without fear or distortion.